In a previous video we looked at bringing text out of a group of clouds using a mask in Pictures-to-Exe. We can take this a little further if we wish to use an image editor. We're going to need something like Photoshop or Photoshop Elements to do this. So I'm going to begin again here by dragging down the two images that I want to demonstrate with, and this one again is the one we'll use to place our text upon. But here we're going to have the text climbing out from behind those rocks, but we're going to make it a little bit more specific to the edge of the rocks. So we'd need to open this up into our image editor. Control W will do that, and the first thing I need to do is to make a selection along this line here. Now I think we may be able to get away with this using the magic wand tool, so it shouldn't be a lengthy process. Any version of Photoshop and any version of Photoshop Elements will have a magic wand tool, and when you select it, it usually has a tolerance at the top of the screen, and the default setting is 32. If I click around this area here, you can see that it picks up a little more than I really need. So let's hit Control D, and I'll drop this back down to about 20 to try to limit its effectiveness, and I'll click again, and there you can see it looks a bit better. If we select this option at the top left of the screen, we get a little plus alongside the magic wand, which means I can click into other areas and add one selection to another. Now we need to be careful we don't go too far here, and it's the edge along here which is the important part, but you can see I'm just clicking around and I seem to be having a fair degree of success along the edge. Now I've got a little bit of an encroachment there, but we can soon fix that. Switch tools for a moment. Switch to your lasso tool. Use the add one selection to another, and all those little sparklies above now, I can just gather them up because it's that edge line along the rocks that's the most important part. And there you can see the selection. Now if I zoom in to that area, I think the quickest way to deal with this is to remove that part of the selection. Well, we've got plus here, so let's go to this option which removes one selection from another, and we can say no, take that bit away because we don't want that bit. Control 0, there we have our selection. If we look in really tight, you may see one or two little spots. Well, switch to add to again, so we get the little plus. And if it's really important to you, you can gather those up as well. But for what we're doing here, that's going to meet our needs. Now what I actually want is the bottom half of this, not the top half, because I want my text coming up from behind the rocks. That's easy to achieve. I need to switch my selection around. There's shortcut keys for this, but they're 3 keys, so let's remember we're working with a selection, so if we want to do anything with that selection, go to the select menu. And that's the one we want. When I select inverse, well, you can see what's happened. I've got the bottom part of the image, which is the part I want. But I would like this line to be slightly soft. If it's hard, it doesn't look quite as attractive. It doesn't need to be very soft, but let's go to select and mask here. Little bit of feather. I'm really not thinking of more than 4 or 5 pixels. I think that's all I'm going to need. Output to a selection and OK. Now all we need to do is to copy that selection to a new layer. Let me open this up so we can see exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to hit Control J, a nice universal keyboard shortcut. It will always copy a selection we have on one layer and create what we've copied on another layer, but if we don't have a selection, it will copy the entire layer. Very convenient. Control J. And if I turn the bottom layer off, there you can see what we've just created. Now this is a technique which is very similar to the moving clouds that we looked at earlier too, because what we need to do now is to save this as a PNG file to retain the transparent nature of the area at the top. So File, Save As. We'll select our Save option as PNG. I'll keep the same name. We're in the right place, mask and text. I'll save that. Now we can go back into Pictures to Exe. Coming back to Pictures to Exe, I need to select the image we're working on and open up the Objects and Animation screen. Click into the grey area to lose any selections, and we need to go to the icon to add an image, and what we need is our Foster Blue. Sometimes if we don't change the names of images, we can get a little bit of confusion here. So maybe we could just change this in the properties. We'll just call this Foster Blue bottom half, so at least we can recognize it easily there. And let's go back to the Animation tab. What we need to do next then is to create some text. So I'm going to click into the grey area, click my text tool and type the text that I want. Now once we do this, we can go back to the Animation tab and we can look at the effect of dropping the text down. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't disappear. We need to be aware of the stacking order over here, because what we need is the text to sit between these two, and the easiest way to achieve that is select it, hold the Control key and page down. And there's the effect we was looking to create. Now we looked in the previous video at adding colour to the text, but all we need to do here is exactly the same as we did before. Take account of the slide duration and the time you want the text to appear from behind the rocks into the sky. I will also supply what I've done here as a slide style, but with the text I've done much the same as we did before, just varied the animation very slightly. Let me show you what we have, starting with our blank. Just a slight difference in the way the text appears, a little bit of rotation as well, nice gentle stop, but instead of it fading off screen, just a zoom down and a slight pan to take it down behind that rock. If I open this image up into the Objects and Animation screen and I go to my text, you can see what I've done. We've got the 2 seconds for the background image to appear. We've got 2 seconds to enjoy it. You can just see the outline of where the text is currently lying. Then it just drifts up into the position I want. Over 4 seconds. Between 8 and 11 it just sits there. But then from 11 it zooms down and pans very, very slightly, which means that the speed options we want here, the animation speed is slowed down because I'm panning and rotating, but I'm beginning my animation hidden, so I don't have to worry about a sudden start. But when I get to this keyframe to start the process of leaving the screen, then of course the text is fully on view. So now my slight pan and my slight zoom needs a smooth setting to look at its best. And to bring this video to a close, there is one other option we do have. Seeing as we need to come into an image editor to create the patch that we created, then of course we could, if we wished, create our text in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, because we do have lots of different effects we can apply and we can add them and remove them as we see fit. If I put a little bit of bevel and emboss over this, for example, that looks a little bit on the large side to me. Let's take it down to about 8. See that lovely curve now we've got to the word Foster, and we can even add texture. And if we wanted to use this rather than the text in Pictures to Exe, then of course we turn the other two off. We could, in actual fact, we could crop this. Let me remove all my crops and just crop in tight to it. Not always essential, but sometimes it's useful. And then we would save this. as a PNG file, and we can apply that to our slideshow or our demo in exactly the same way. And to bring this video to a close, let me just apply the slide style that you can try yourself by just creating that first blank slide style. You'll notice there's 3 in our set now. The one I want is difficult to see the titles here, but we can make this bigger. There, this is the one I'm looking for, the Forster in blue Photoshop text. So let me press play and we can take a look at this, but all being created in exactly the same way, albeit that the text with a little more style was created in Photoshop. Any version of Photoshop will do, and any version of Photoshop Elements.